Hi, everybody. We'll just wait maybe a minute or two and just see if anyone else trails in before we start. But welcome to the Road to Sustainable Commuting webinar. This is part of Green Economy London's Green Wheel Employee Engagement Program. So we have three awesome speakers for today's session, and we'll be talking about how your business and your employees can support more sustainable commuting options at the workplace, and some different considerations when trying to implement and practice more sustainable options. So my name is Caitlin, and I'm the program coordinator for Green Economy London. And Green Economy London is one of the programs of the London Environmental Network. So the London Environmental Network is a local charity organization. We aim to cultivate a healthier and more sustainable city and have London be known as one of the greenest and most resilient cities in Canada. We have a number of programs that we run that help to build participation and collaboration in the community to co-create positive environmental change. So these are some of our programs. Green Economy London is our business sustainability program. So what Green Economy London does is offer businesses and their staff with practical and cost-effective approaches to reducing their environmental impact and also achieving things like resource efficiency and cost savings through reduction projects and setting and achieving reduction targets. So we focus on 4 key areas. One's greenhouse gas emissions, one is water, and then we have waste reduction and environmental stewardship. So we support businesses in things like setting baseline targets, offering technical workshops and learning opportunities like the webinar we're in right now, help identify funding opportunities, and also recognize and celebrate these organizations for making a commitment to sustainability and reducing their environmental impact. So these are just a quick snapshot of some of our members. So we have 53 organizations that are part of our Green Economy London network of all sizes and different sectors too. And then a big thanks to our supporters who help make a lot of the projects that we help our members implement possible. So just before we dive into our speakers and before I introduce them, I just wanted to touch a bit on the importance of sustainable commuting and why it should be something that we consider as an organization. So employee commuting is part of Scope 3 emissions. So it is not required to track, but it actually can have a significant carbon impact. And for most organizations, regardless of their size or how many employees they have, it will be a significant source of emissions, especially if the work requires employees to be on site or going in and out of an office every day. And it's also important to have a holistic and complete understanding of your organization's environmental impact as a whole. So that includes things like employee commuting, transportation to and from work sites and things like that. And it's also a great way to participate and collectively contribute to being able to reach net zero by 2050 targets. And there's actually also quite a few benefits to an organization when they implement and support more sustainable commuting options. So things like walking, biking, or public transit, carpooling, offering flexible work from home days, so employees don't have to commute at all, can not only reduce emissions, but also promote healthy and active lifestyles for employees. It can also contribute to reduced absenteeism from improved physical and mental health of employees for those who are opting into more active modes of transportation. Also, you could see improved social relationships between coworkers who maybe carpool together or bike or take transit together. as well as decrease strain on the parking facilities and the like business costs of providing each and every one of your employees with parking passes, for example. And then lastly, it can improve the recruitment and retention of employees who really value sustainability and want to work for an organization that they can see is prioritizing that and considering sustainable commuting options. So with that, I want to introduce all of our speakers. So we have Allison Miller, who's the Senior Transportation Demand Management Coordinator with the City of London. And we have Molly Miksa, who's the Executive Director at London CycleLink, and Shannon Hawke, who's the Intern Architecture at Cornerstone Architecture. So yeah, thank you all for being here. I'm really excited to hear all of your insights, and likewise, I'm sure everyone's excited to see your presentation. So I will pass it over to Allison.
Thank you, Caitlin. And you can hear me? Good. Caitlin has graciously offered to move the slides forward for some of us, so that's great. Hi, everyone. As mentioned, if you are a Londoner, I am your Senior Transportation Demand Management Coordinator. I've been with the city for, it'll be 19 years tomorrow, actually, and in the TDM world for that long. I work in the climate change and environmental stewardship area of the city, just to kind of give you context of where I fit into the city corporation. The reason that I'm the one speaking to you today is that TDM is directly related to how you and employees commute to and from work. Next slide, please. So TDM is the use of policies, programs, services, and products that influence whether, why, when, where, and how people travel around their city or beyond. TDM strategies seek to increase the efficiency of a transportation system by influencing our travel behavior. There are many goals to TDM. They include reducing reliance on single occupancy vehicles. And that's a term in my world. What that means is you get in your car and it's just you and you're driving alone. Reducing vehicle kilometers traveled, so the distance that we travel by car. Capital expenditures, maintenance costs, traffic congestion, and as I mentioned, I work in sort of the environmental area, greenhouse gas emissions, so reducing those. And conversely, it's about improving road safety, air quality, health, and social connections. Now, over the last few years, there have been, oh, and that's, I didn't say go, but that's fine, totally fine. Over the last few years, there have been a few things that have helped me in terms of reaching these goals. The number one, of course, being the pandemic, has really affected weather and how we move around the city. The other ones are the Climate Emergency Action Plan, which I will circle back to, and the Mobility Master Plan. Next slide, please. So why now? Well, we make a lot of trips. In fact, we make over 302 million trips a year. Now, this illustration shows from 2021, so recognizing that that was still during the pandemic, how many trips we made. And this translates to 680,000 tons of CO2 emissions. So essentially greenhouse gas emissions. I'm simplifying it, but that's essentially what it shows. So it shows that we do make a lot of trips by all modes, and there's room for improvement there. To note in this illustration that there is a large percentage of trips from folks who don't live in London, but are commuting into London or are traveling into London, whether that be for work, for school, or for other purposes. And conversely, there are many of us who are traveling outside of London. So this represents many, many trips. Next slide, please. Well, why should we care about the commute to and from work? This illustration from 2019 shows that the estimated breakdown of greenhouse gas emissions in London in terms of our human activity, noting that half of the emissions come from that big scary black bar on the right, on the far right, our personal vehicles, and from our housing, so heating and cooling our housing, our homes, for example. So there is a lot of potential there to address those carbon dioxide emissions. So London's Climate Emergency Action Plan is part of this and will help with that. And part of it looks at transportation and mobility and the actions that we as Londoners, as individuals, as households, as businesses, and as partners can take to address that. As noted in the city's 2016 household travel survey, about or roughly 63% of all trips made during the day are by drivers, meaning that they're by folks who are driving their own personal vehicles alone. So not carpooling with others, but using their own vehicle alone. And this dependency on automobile use, it adds a financial burden to individuals and to households, and can make it very difficult. If you can't afford to purchase a car, then it's restricting where you can find a job. And conversely, for employers, if they're located in an area that has poor or little public transit and poor or little cycling infrastructure and other infrastructure as well, it makes it difficult to find employees. And we know that this is a problem right now in London and actually in surrounding areas as well. Now, that's not to mention the folks or the Londoners and households who choose not to own a vehicle. And so you're restricted in where you can find employment and how you get around. Next slide, please. So the Mobility Master Plan is the plan that determines how London prioritizes infrastructure, programs, and policies over the next 25 years. So looking at London as a whole, not just one particular area of London. It includes a draft vision and draft guiding principles, and the vision being that by 2050, Londoners of all identities, abilities, and means have viable mobility options to allow them to move through the city safely and efficiently. And those draft guiding principles speak to a transportation or mobility system that's environmentally sustainable, equitable, financially sustainable, healthy and safe, and also integrated, connected, and efficient. And that last one very much speaks to technologies, for example. We have more and more technologies that assist us in moving around our city. Now, I will suggest that the Mobility Master Plan, the process has just started. We're just in phase 1. And now's the time to have your say. So we are looking for Londoners to provide input and feedback on how you currently get around and what options you need to get around into the future over the next 25 years. And you can complete a feedback form at our getinvolved.london.ca website. I think that link will be provided in a follow-up email, but that's a good place to provide input on how you get around currently. And that will very, very much help city staff to inform the plan and how to move forward and how to prioritize as well. Next slide. The city currently offers supports to local businesses. Those include, we can help you survey your employees in terms of how they get to and from work and what sorts of supports would help them to have more options. We also can help with mapping employees' home locations. So this is just an example of one of those maps. And so it shows where employees are coming from. And it can help to, again, prioritize what sorts of programs would help to, it could be connecting those employees in terms of carpooling and promoting carpooling, for example. So that's something that we can help with. We also offer bike and walk maps, and we can provide those in bulk to workplaces. And we have a new business bike rack program. And the idea there is that it's meant for smaller employers, but who who have some private property would like to purchase a bike rack, both for employees and could be customers or clients, and but they don't know, where to start. So we can offer a bike rack, a well-designed bike rack at cost. And then we can also provide advice on how to locate it as well, so that it's very visible and cyclists know how to use it and where it is, and their racks their bikes are seen throughout the day. Next slide. I think this is my second last one. And then some of the upcoming things that we have in the works. The city is looking to develop London's first Transportation Management Association, or TMA. And a TMA is a grouping of, it's usually a public-private partnership. So it's a grouping of employers that come together, usually within a similar geographic area. And they share what are their employees' what are their challenges, and they share ideas and really team up to provide supports for their employees. And generally speaking, the public side is that generally the municipality can provide support too. Now, this is not a new concept. This is something that's very widespread in the United States. In Canada, there are examples in the Toronto area and Vancouver. The other thing we're looking to do is bring back a free carpool matching tool or website service. So we've provided one for many years, and actually teamed up with surrounding municipalities to provide that. But due to several reasons, one being the pandemic, we had to close the website. So we're looking to bring something back to help Londoners match up with other Londoners who share a similar route to and from work or school, and share the ride. We're also continuing to grow our bike routes and our bike network. And we're exploring bike share as another option for Londoners to get around. Now, bike share is a service. So it's where an operator comes in and provides bikes where you rent it for short trips, and generally speaking, one-way trips. So that is something that we're exploring. And I guess I would say stay tuned on that. And last slide. Please reach out if you'd like to discuss any of this, or if you'd like to get a bulk number of bike or walk maps, we can provide that as well. And those are the links to the resources I mentioned. Thank you for having me, and I know I look forward to the rest of the session. This is great.
Thank you so much, Allison. Thank you for the resources. That was awesome. we'll just keep going right through, and I will pass it over to Molly from London CycleLink.
Thanks, Caitlin. Thanks, Allison.
Sorry, I think, there we go.
Okay.
You're back. Sorry,
okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, thanks, Caitlin. Thank you, Allison. Welcome, everyone. So we're talking about tips and advice for cycle commuting for employers and employees. I will try not to repeat too much of what has already been said. Next slide, please. So about me, just a little bit, and my journey as a commuter. I have been a commuter cyclist for 25 years. I started as a student in Toronto. The reason I started riding a bike was cost, was that it was the easiest choice, was that it was often the fastest way to get from A to B. There was a social aspect that I could ride with friends or meet people part way. And I was concerned about the environment. So a lot of reasons. That was as a student. I finished school. I got a job as an environmental coordinator, actually, at a business office. It was like a directory sales office, which had like a green directory. And I was able to bring into the office a bike share program so that the sales force, especially, who would drive into the office and then would drive around and meet people all over downtown with a lot of traffic congestion, would have the option to just borrow one of the bikes in the office to get to their appointments. After I left there, I became a self-employed photographer, and I did that for several years by bike. So you can see here, this is my cargo bike that I still have. loaded up with all my gear. So my photography, camera equipment, backdrop stands, tripods, everything I was able to put on the bike and get around that way. So there's a lot that's possible on a bike if you put your mind to it. And there's a lot of cargo bike options, e-bike options these days, more than I think ever before, trailers. So there shouldn't be much to stop many people from switching to commuting. And then you can see, this is me with my kids a couple of years ago, same bike. And I carried my kids on the bike when they were little. Now I have this extra set of handlebars. So I still bring my younger son to school every day on the same bike. And yeah, and now my job includes riding a bike because I need to keep aware of what's happening, checking out constantly the new and improving cycling infrastructure, how it's being used, and seeing everyone else out there riding. So next slide, please. London Cycle Link. This is where I get to work, which is great. I've been 1 year as executive director, and 4 years previous to that, I was a volunteer with London Cycle Link. Our mission is to help Londoners ride more. We do this by building confidence, advocating for safe streets, and developing a thriving cycling culture. So our main programs are the Squeaky Wheel Bike Co-op, which is in Old East Village. We will be moving to the new Embassy Commons building, which is operated by Indwell and still under construction, but just down the street on Dundas from where we are now, which is 809 Dundas. The co-op is a community bike shop where you can bring in your own bike and staff and volunteers will help you to fix it yourself. We also get donated bikes and refurbish them to sell at a reasonable cost to people. And then we do other programming. So I encourage everyone to drop by because it's also part of commuting. If you have the basic skills of being able to fix your own bike, it keeps you on the road more. So if you can change a flat tire, if you can do basic fix, then you're more likely to keep riding. So we want that. And we want to be accessible that everyone can afford a bike. We do advocacy as well around infrastructure, which includes, bike lanes. It also includes things like bike parking and maintenance, and then also other than municipal levels of government encouraging better laws for cyclists. And then sometimes we do work as well with non-governmental aspects of advocacy. So we have a group now looking at the hospitals and trying to improve infrastructure in the hospitals for safe cycling and parking. And then we also do community engagement. So we have a membership base and engage with businesses as well. So bringing me to next slide. The Bike Friendly Business Program. So this is a program that we started a couple of years ago before I had started, and then sort of the pandemic hit. So it's been a little bit on hold, and we have a summer student who's just started this week actually, who's going to be working with us, and a group of volunteers who are really excited to go back to the drawing board and sort of reevaluate where we were with this program, and probably, relaunch a little bit later in the summer. So we have some already Bike Friendly Business members. I think Pillar is one that maybe we have some representatives from here, and others who've been excited to have already joined. And then we'll be expanding from there. And also we collaborate a lot. So eager to collaborate with Green Economy London, as well as the city on their programs for this. Why should people bike commute? Why is this important to have a program? Cycling is good for people. Employees who regularly cycle, this is a little bit repetitive from some of what Caitlin said. Employees who regularly cycle have less stress, fewer mental health symptoms, stronger immune systems, and take fewer sick days. Safe and convenient cycling infrastructure and access to bicycles makes the streets safer for everyone, increases access to jobs, and can save households thousands of dollars. Cycling is good for the planet. The largest contributor to greenhouse gases in London is personal vehicles, and you saw that on Allison's slide, referencing the climate emergency action plan. So it's huge, it's a big deal, and converting more people to riding bikes will make a big difference in our city. And then more Londoners riding bikes, yeah, will reduce emissions and improve our air quality. And cycling is good for profit. So if you have a storefront, a front-facing business, or such as a shop, people on bikes are going to visit more often and spend more per month than their driving counterparts. So that's because if you're in a car, you see like, oh, I kind of want to stop there, but I have to find a parking place, I have to pay for it, it's going to take a long time. You're probably not going to do it. On a bike, you just pull right over and there you are. So it does increase, has been shown to increase stops. And then safe and convenient cycling infrastructure and access to bicycles makes, sorry, I lost myself. And regular physical activity increases employees' attention, learning, and creativity. Those things are all referenced on our website under the Bicycle Friendly Business Program if you wanted to read more about that research. What is the Bike Friendly Business Program? So right now we have a map showing Bike Friendly Business participants. There's a window sticker. We had been offering facility audits and lunch and learn workshops as well pre-pandemic. So those are things that we will be revisiting. If you're interested in those things, contact us anytime. Next slide. So to start into the sort of nuts and bolts of bike commuting, just the basics, if there are people here who are considering getting into that or considering starting to ride a bike more, just legal requirements, the things your bike needs to have are a bell or horn, a brake. You are required to have a back brake. Ideally, you have a front brake as well, but not legally required. You need lights half an hour before dusk and after the sun rises, and reflective tape on the forks of your bike. Under 18, you're required to wear a helmet. Over 18, it's your choice. I would encourage helmet wearing, but legally that's optional. And then bikes need to follow the laws of other vehicles on the road. Generally speaking, specific bike related rules are the 1 meter rule. So cars are encouraged to pass, giving, if it's possible, at least 1 meter of space between the car and a bike. For the cyclist, encouraging always to ride with 1 meter from a parked car or anything else on the side of the road, notably parked cars, because that's one of the biggest incidents of collisions is called the door prize, when someone opens their door as the bike is coming by. So give yourself space. Riding on the road is a requirement if you're over 10 years old. Kids are allowed to ride on the sidewalk. That's just some basics. Next slide. Parking is huge in terms of supporting cyclists in the workplace. So for employers, what you really want to consider is where can people park and is it safe? So you see here some different options. This one in the middle is kind of similar to the ring and post in terms of design and in terms of safety. And then the city has the TIMO design. Did I get that right, Allison? Which is the one that looks like a bike frame. So all of those are good. This sort of wavy design here as a rack, that should be pretty good as well. This one on the left, not so good. This rack lets you lock the front tire maybe of your bike. Most bikes have a quick release on the front tire. So what'll happen there is if you're not able to lock the front tire as well as the frame, a thief can just unlock the tire and either if the frame is locked, they'll take your tire. If the tire is locked, they take the rest of the bike quite easily. So what people who know that will do with this kind of a rack on the left is that they're going to lock either on the side or they're going to put their bike crossways, and there's a lot of wasted bike rack space there. So this is just not really recommended. Anything else? Yeah, theft is really a big issue in London and lots of places, and it's a deterrent. So it's a reason that people won't bike, is because they're afraid that their bike is going to get stolen. So this is a big consideration for businesses. If you have the possibility of offering an indoor space or a protected, secure space for your employees to park or your visitors, that's ideal. The city is offering now the bike lockers in a few places, which are also quite safe. Second to that, though, parking racks and some education about how to park are really good. So I sent Caitlin a resource on that she may want to share with you. Certainly feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions on that. I'm just looking in the chat. Timo's Rock, yes, Pillar's a proud bike-friendly business member. Thank you, Pillar. Yeah, so next slide. Bike parking for commuters. So I've kind of gone through this. The way to park is, the way to lock through the front tire as well as the frame. The type of locks, so you have here on the left again, the U-lock, which is recommended. Get a solid lock, and you can ask any of the people at bike shops or a squeaky wheel for more specific information. On the right here, you've got these cable locks, which are not recommended. There's also something that's like a folding bike lock, which is pretty good, but you'd want to get specifics on that. Generally speaking, if you look for a U-lock, you should be in pretty good stead. There's other fine tuning elements, like if it's pretty small, there's less room for it to be wiggled around and for someone to cut through it if they're a pretty serious thief. But that's sort of getting into the weeds. There's a lot more I could say about bike parking, but maybe that's good for the moment. Allison sort of mentioned in terms of like where you locate the racks, that's important too. And I have another document actually that I can share with Caitlin that maybe she can circulate for interested people. Okay, next. Showers. I didn't used to think this was a big deal because I have, as I said, been cycling all of my adult life and never really felt the need to take a shower when I got to work. And never imagined that I would have time once I got work to do that. So I didn't really get it personally. And then I started in this job, I started to talk to people who that is important for. And through conversations realized like it's actually an accessibility issue because people are different. So people's bodies are different. Some people sweat a lot and they really want to take a shower when they get to their destination. Some people have jobs that they have to be, highly presentable, that's going to be a factor that, can stop them from cycling. So, for some of us, it might be like, I'll just, ride a little slower, or I'll change my shirt, or it doesn't matter. For other people, it is going to make a big difference. So that's a serious consideration if you really want to support your employees. And next. How else can workplaces support and encourage bike commuting? So if we had time, I'm interested in everyone's feedback. Feel free to put any suggestions that you have in the chat here or reach out. There's a lot of potential, but I would say larger businesses, here are some examples. Larger businesses can offer bike bike parking maps. So like a hospital system can show you where to park in a larger area. When you're promoting events, list bike parking options as well as car parking for everyone. Incentive programs. So it's not something much done here, but we had a blog post from a student researching other, actually Columbia a couple months ago, and they have a whole system that you get a rebate at work. It's on our blog, but And I understand that in Brazil, there's something similar. You get like paid sick days if you commute so many times. So we could be doing a lot better in terms of incentivizing bike commuting. You can encourage bike workshops if your employees want to learn to ride. CanBike offers workshops like that, or maybe offering bike share programs like the one that I mentioned, bike to a carpool spot. Encourage people to also bike and use transit. You can load a bike on a bus. So that's something for people to look into. Become a bike-friendly business member and join Green Economy London's program as well. And final slide, thank you. Feel free to reach, this is our new location, the dream that is almost reality. And this is our current shop. So feel free to reach out to me. It's been a busy month. This is bike month, so there's tons of events happening. Encourage everyone to get to lots of them and to stay involved and to ride your bikes.
Thank you, Molly. That was awesome. And yeah, like Molly mentioned, we'll be sending out resources afterwards, and all the resources and links that her and Allison had mentioned. And I should have mentioned this earlier too, but if anyone, I can see people are putting stuff in the chat, but if anyone has questions as we go, feel free to put it in the Q&A or the chat box, and we'll get to it after we hear from Shannon. So I am going to stop sharing my screen now and pass it over to Shannon. So yeah, thank you, Molly and Allison.
All right, I'm going to share here. Okay, can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So hello, everyone. Yeah, as Caitlin mentioned, my name is Shannon Hawke, and I am one of the intern architects at Cornerstone Architecture. So a little bit about me before we get started. I am the head of the green team here at Cornerstone, and I've been here for about 5 years. So in that time, I've been working with the team to implement a lot of different like more sustainable options for our day-to-day operations. And so yeah, today I'll talk about 3 of the things that we have been implementing over the years to provide more sustainable community options. I've also in the past volunteered with the London Environmental Network as part of the planning committee. And I also used to co-run a group called Zero Waste for City, and we were promoting living a zero waste lifestyle. So a little bit about who Cornerstone is. This is our motto at the top. We build community buildings that build community. So we do a lot of projects from quite a wide range. So we do from like childcare to school projects, all the way from kindergarten up to university and college institution buildings. And we also do a lot of community projects through London. And then we also do a lot of long-term care and retirement homes for seniors. So we kind of do the full age range of projects. But all of these projects are really susceptible for like doing kind of green alternatives and more sustainable building projects. So we are focused on green alternatives at all scales, from designing green buildings to everyday office operations. And we really do believe that making changes at all scales of our operations is important. We were also a founding member of Green Economy London, and we were the 2019 winner of the Green Leader Award for meeting our platinum target in environmental stewardship. So before I get into the 3 different things that we do, this is a little bit about why we care and why we focus on this sort of sustainable alternatives. We realize that we have the privilege and responsibility to do what we can to ensure that our impact as a business contributes positively to our community and to a more sustainable future. And we acknowledge that through our work, we're building buildings that will be here for a very long time. And we realize that this has
a significant lasting impact on the environment. So we try to work with all of our clients to implement as many sustainable design options as we can, realizing that not everyone can build like a LEED Platinum building, but there's always more that we can do even for some of the smaller projects. And as I said already, our day-to-day operations, we try to have those reflect our larger scale values, because making these changes at all scales is what we need to be doing to help combat this climate emergency that we're facing. So some of our sustainable community options that we offer. So this first one is something we've been doing for a really long time actually, and it's to offer a bus pass instead of a parking pass. So that's a really simple thing that you can offer your employees. We're lucky that our office is right at Piccadilly and Richmond, right at the Black Walnut. So we do have access to a lot of the public transit in the area. So this is an option when a new employee starts, they can decide if they want the bus pass or the parking pass, and it's the full scale parking pass. It can be used all days of the week. There's no limit to it, which is great. And we also try to remind employees once in a while that this is an option because people can switch at any time. The next thing that we provide is safe and secure bike parking. So as Molly was talking about, this has been a reason that people didn't bike in the past because we don't have very safe and secure bike parking at the building. And so people maybe biked once, but then we're like checking the rack every couple hours and nervous that it would be stolen. And so luckily we do have a patio that is accessible only through the office. So people are able to bike to work, they carry their bike through the office, and then they can park it outside on this patio. It is covered. And in this image with our compost bins, you can see on the ground these little like metal loops that are in the ground. And so people are able to lock their bike to that. But this is also a secure patio and people from the street are not able to access it. So that's a great option that we have. And I acknowledge that not everyone is going to have this amount of space for their bikes in the office, but something that we do in our design of buildings is work with people with business, or sorry, with the building operators to find appropriate bikes parking in their building. And there are a lot of really cool options for like wall hung bike racks. So the bike can kind of go vertical. And so that can help save space. So there are options, but yeah, acknowledging that not everyone has space, but if you're able to provide that, it's a great way to get more people to be biking to work. And then our third program, this is brand new. We are literally implementing it like right now for the first time. So starting in May and moving forward, we're going to be purchasing carbon offsets for all of our vehicular travel to and from site visits and our other out of office meetings. So this is important for us because as much as we've been trying to limit our out of office meetings and using Zoom as much as we can, the reality is that we need to be able to visit our construction sites, monitor the progress of the project, and work with the construction team to fix any issues and stuff. So we do regularly have to travel to these sites, and we work in about a 3-hour radius from London, and so our vehicular travel really does add up pretty quickly. So this is a program we've been talking about implementing for a couple years now, and of course COVID kind of put a stop on that, but we've just started implementing it now. So we are going to use lessemissions.com, which is a Bullfrog powered company. And just a fun fact, Cornerstone has been offsetting our carbon emissions through Bullfrog power since 2008. So that's like our office emissions, but it did not include our car travel. So when you go to lessemissions.com, you can see this image like right at the front on the front page. You're able to offset your flights. You can offset the corporate shipping, or you can offset by the tons of CO2e that is produced by whatever you're trying to calculate. So when you click on that option, offset by tons, which is what we'll be doing, you have to input the tons of CO2e here. Let me just explain how we're doing that. So we are calculating the distance traveled through our gas reimbursement requests, because when people submit that request, they have to put in the distance that they traveled. So through that, we can calculate how far everyone is traveling with their personal vehicles. And then we also have an office car that we will also just track its distance every time that we submit this. So once we have the distance that everyone has traveled in their personal vehicle, we use this car calculator from carbonfootprint.com. And as you can see here, this is my car I just put in as an example. So I have a 2009 Toyota Prius, and I just put in 1,000 kilometers as an example. So you put in the distance, you put in the type of car, and then this calculator tells you what your total car footprint is. So we'll do this for every employee who uses their personal car for work travel, calculate this total, and then we put that amount, if you can see my mouse, but back to this part where we put in that total, and then the website provides these two products, they're calling it, where you can purchase the offsets. And so, yeah, as I said, we haven't even gotten this far yet. We're starting to calculate for May. We're going to do every 2 months, I think, it will be our frequency. And yeah, we're excited to see the impact that this can have in reducing our emissions with our vehicular travel. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to highlight these 3 different options that we provide in our office. And as a conclusion, I think it's pretty obvious that the world is drastically changing, and we're being faced with a pretty extreme climate emergency. So everything that we can do from small to large scale changes is absolutely necessary and important. I know I personally have struggled with making these changes in an office setting where it feels like there's 25 people here. We're not a huge company. It feels almost insignificant sometimes to be making this sort of change. But what I remind myself is that if all businesses and organizations start implementing this sort of change, it really will have a big impact. So I hope that some of these ideas are something that you can consider for your business. And I'm excited to see what comes out of this new program with Green Power London. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Shannon. Yeah, that was awesome. It's great to see what all the different options that businesses can do, no matter how big or small the team is. And I think all 3 of you really highlighted the importance of climate action and how employee commuting really can, and taking action on more sustainable options can really impact that. So thank you all so much. If anyone has any questions, I'd love to, we still have a few minutes left, so be happy to open it up to any questions anyone may have, or if there's, for some of you, if your organizations are already taking action and there's different things your business is doing already, would love to hear about that. And I just see that there's one question in the chat box or in the Q&A. Could you speak to what kind of information and or data you would need if you wanted to measure your employees commuting? Yeah, great question. So I think, Shannon, you sort of touched on this as well, but I think what mode of transportation they're using, the distance traveled to and from work, and then how many days, whether you want to do a monthly calculation or an annual calculation for what your employees are doing, just how many days for each commuting option they're doing. And then I think there is a question for you, Shannon, in the chat. It says, hi, Shannon, have you considered an EV for the work vehicle?
You know what, this actually came up this week. We currently don't have an EV, but another employee did bring this up, and I think it's something that we're definitely going to discuss and consider. One of the company principals actually did buy an EV for her personal vehicle because she is traveling so much for work, and I think that was a big reason that she wanted to make that switch. So yeah, it's something we're going to be talking about for sure. And then we rent our space in our building, but we definitely want to be chatting with the building to see if we can put in an EV charger as well.
Awesome. Yeah, and then I just seen another question in here too. If there's a hashtag for the Green Wheel campaign, so Green Wheel is our sustainable commuting employee engagement program that's running for the entire month of June. So this webinar is one of the resources that we wanted to share. And if any of you in your organization wants to share pictures, feel free to tag Green Economy London, and we are using the hashtag Greenwheel 2022. So yeah, it's just throughout the month, if you check up on any of our social media channels, we'll be sharing resources for the importance of measuring employee commuting in scope 3, for example, and different tips and tricks for employees and businesses. And then, yeah, that's to add to your point, Shannon, about the EV. That's a great point as well. And there's also lots of funding opportunities available for either purchasing a new or used electric vehicle, or even installing chargers as well. So yeah, we can share some resources on that as well. Does anyone else have any other questions before we wrap up? Sorry, I'm just reading this here. So we've got a message from Paul about how what shows up on their website for people who are arriving at Innovation Works, if anyone is familiar with Innovation Works. So Pillar is one of London CycleLink's bike-friendly businesses, and they have indoor bike parking for the co-working members, and also guests can access that through the accessibility ramp. And then there's also outdoor bike racks provided as well. So yeah, thank you for sharing that, Paul. And that's there's some more information in the chat box as well. And yeah, Molly, if you want to chime in.
Yeah, thanks, Caitlin. I had one more point, just because I don't think it's really come up. And it's a little anecdote from this morning. So we're running this week a 3-day program for newcomer students at Beale in the English language learning program. And we're setting up 13 students with bikes and whole bike kits and doing basic mechanics and cycle training with them. So we met the students this morning and gave them all their bikes, and they were so happy and so excited. And there were a couple who didn't know how to ride bikes, and seeing them literally get a bike and ride it for the first time was just so wonderful. But the reason that we're doing that program now, and we really pushed it through, is that their teachers wanted these kids to have a bike for the summer. And some of them, maybe refugee families, those kids might be getting the groceries for their family. And so having this bicycle can make a big difference for them. And there's going to be people that don't have a car, that don't have access to a car. And if a business can support someone who rides a bike because they have to, then those people are more likely to get jobs and better jobs. And you're branching out to more types of people in the community. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Thank you, Molly. All right, well, if there aren't any other questions, I guess we can wrap up a few minutes early. If anyone thinks of anything, we'll be sending a follow-up email with some of the resources that Allison Shannon and Molly all shared, or you can feel free to email me with any questions, and I can help direct you to some answers. Yeah, thank you to our speakers. Those were all awesome presentations and really informative. There's even a lot of stuff that I wasn't aware of too, and just really good considerations. So thank you so much, everybody, and thanks for everyone who attended, and I hope you all have a lovely rest of the day.
Thanks, Kaylin.
No problem. Thank you.